NFL Week 7 is here, and this is your Draftkings first look. We're going to go through the Draftkings salaries and all that good stuff. We're going to figure out who looks good, who looks bad, and it is a tough one. This is probably one of the toughest weeks, certainly the toughest of the year so far. Buys and injuries and all of that. We're going to cut through it. I've got a core play that's going to smash at stone min salary for you guys. So let's get right into it. And before we even, as usual, can talk about the DraftKings salaries and the positions and all of that stuff, let's take a look at the games this week, and I'll talk to you and I'll explain what I mean in terms of this being a bit of a tough week. So note that outside of this one game here, the Chargers at KC with that 48-point mediocre total, we've got a whole pile of games with brutal sub 45-point totals. We got a 37-pointer, injured quarterback fests everywhere, some defenses that are exciting, but let's go through these. So, of course, we start with the Lions at the Ravens, and both teams are actually mostly healthy for this one, which is nice, and the Ravens are at home. Lions defense pretty good, but neither team really projects all that well. Both defenses are actually pretty good, so we'll see how this one goes, but that one, I guess, will be one to keep in mind. Next, we got the Raiders at Chicago, and this is the stink fest of the week. No idea who's starting at QB for the Raiders. I think it might be Brian Hoyer at this point, which pretty much negates their whole passing offense in what would otherwise maybe have been a decent spot. Similarly for Chicago, Tyler Bagent or something like that. Like no QB right now. I don't think Fields is going to play. We'll see. That could change, but I don't think Fields is going to play. So pretty much wipes out the entirety of the Chicago offense from interest, for me at least, which is interesting because this game could have been the smash game of the week had all of the irrelevant QBs been healthy. Oh, well, that's how it goes. In another potential battle of backup QBs, and I'm not sure what's going on with Cleveland and Deshaun Watson. We'll see if he plays this week, but Anthony Richardson of the Colts has been ruled out for the season, so we get Gardner Minshew over here. You know, Cleveland defense is good. They're not to be trifled with, so of course the Colts are not of interest, and you know, I'm probably not interested in too much going on for Cleveland unless Deshaun Watson comes back here. So if he does come back, yeah, actually I would have some interest in those Cleveland pieces there. Next up, we've got the Bills at the Patriots, and the Bills come with a healthy 24.75-point team total, and that is a team to be interested in. The Patriots are on a death spiral at this point, so they are only projecting for 16 points. The Bills always bounce back strong after a bad outing, so I have a feeling the Bills are coming with a vengeance in this game. I will be interested in their offense, but I don't expect a super competitive game. Commanders at the Giants. Giants also backup QB potentially. Maybe Daniel Jones will be back. We'll see. Really interesting. Jaylen Hyatt on the Giants got a ton of snaps last week, so he's pretty cheap. We'll see what salary he's at, but he interests me a smidge in this game. I'm not sure if it's better if Jones starts or not. I don't know. But Washington is a good team to throw on. As far as the Commanders go, yeah, it's a good matchup for them too. That might be a game to pay attention to, even though the total is anemic at 39.5. Falcons at Tampa, just a low total game, 38. Just does not pop at all, right? Both teams are healthy, but this game doesn't really pop. Steelers at the Rams, 43.5-point total. This is actually a game I have some interest in. A, we get a healthy, Rams offense at home. B, Rams running back Zack Evans getting the starting role at stone min salary, super cheap, $4K on DraftKings. So, yeah, I'm interested in that. And George Pickens has been doing it well for the Steelers. So there are some maybe spots here in this 43.5 pointer. This, 43.5 is second highest effectively on the slate. So we have to get players from these low total games. Cardinals at Seattle. Seattle coming with one of the highest team totals of the week, 26.75. So I don't normally play a lot of players from the Seahawks. I just haven't found that any of them justify their price points or any of that. We'll have to keep an eye on the running back, maybe even Geno Smith. I don't know. We'll keep an eye on that team, though. An interesting game here is the Packers at Denver with this 44.5 point total. And again, second highest on the slate of interest. I tend to be more interested in the Packers side on offense. So Jordan Love, Christian Watson, those guys. The return of Aaron Jones is interesting. I think that Packers offense, I wish they were at home so we could kind of get like a comfort spot. But you're going to see it's really, really difficult to pick any quarterbacks this week that outside of the most expensive ones that have any life in them whatsoever. Finally, we get the big game of the week. Chargers at the Chiefs, 48-point total. Close game. Chiefs slight home favorites here. The Chargers coming off that loss, and they produce a lot of offense, but they also really just find a way to lose every game. It really is amazing. The Chargers have been doing this for years. The Chiefs have yet to really put together a great offensive performance. Pat Mahomes has not paid off his salary even once yet this season. Is it because they only? I don't know what the reasoning is. Last year they also didn't have Tyreek Hill, but yet Pat Mahomes produced. Is this finally the game that Pat Mahomes puts up a had to have it number? And if so, who the hell is he throwing to? Outside of Kelsey, there's no safety on that team. So that will be an interesting game to target. So let's jump over to DraftKings, take a look. And of course, reminding you guys, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell, all that good stuff. We want you here. We appreciate those likes and just letting us know that you're out there. And let me know in the comments who your favorite starting quarterback, wide receiver stack is for NFL Week 7. I know it's early in the week. But let me know in the comments. Who do you like? All right, looking at the top of the list, of course, Pat Mahomes in a great spot at home against the league worst Chargers pass defense. They're just a good team to target via the pass. So 8,300 is expensive for a quarterback, but he's very much in play here. Josh Allen, super high team total against New England. New England defense is obviously pretty good, but not good enough to stop Josh Allen. I'm not sure we'll need that much out of Allen in this game to get the win, but usually Buffalo, coming off a loss, they come back angry. So we'll see how that goes. Justin Herbert, the other side of the Chiefs game, the Chiefs defense has actually been pretty good this year. So it's not like Herbert's a must play or anything, but I think he's fine. I think, given the $300 difference between him and Mahomes, I'm going to lean towards Mahomes at home. Taylor Swift's supposed to be at the game. Maybe stack up Mahomes with Mr. Pfizer. Little Mr. Swift action there. So we'll see. Lamar Jackson, 7,600 against Detroit. I think that's fine too. The QB position is very, very barren this week. It gets gross quickly. So, if we're paying up, Lamar. I don't normally play Lamar. You guys know this if you're watching this show. He's not like a quarterback that I personally play very frequently. I think he tends to underperform his high salary. He's been pretty close to just averaging. He had a couple good games earlier in the year. Actually, the game against Cleveland, the 20. So he did a couple big games earlier in the year, but more often than not, he's getting 11s and 18s and 22s, which are just not enough for the super high, 8K salary. But I think this is a week where, Detroit can score. So I think the Ravens offense will slow down if the opponent's not putting up numbers on them. But in a situation where they're facing a competitive opponent, it becomes much more interesting for me. So I do like the Baltimore side of this game at home. Stafford at home against the Rams. One nice thing about if you watched a lot of the breakdowns that I did last week is that you got off the Stafford chalk, right? We talked about it on Tournament Tactics. We talked about it on the Millie Maker show that I do later in the week that, when I saw Matt Stafford was going to be the highest owned quarterback on the slate, according to ownership projections, I was like, well, I don't know who's out there. And then of course I looked up one of these industry lists and like 97, like so many of the industry was all over Matthew Stafford. There must be, I'm glad I don't watch a lot of the quote unquote industry shows. I really rarely see almost anything. And then I look around and I'm like, is this groupthink? Is that what's happening here? Is that like one idiot says something and then all these other idiots just parrot what that person says? I really think that goes on in the DFS industry, guys. Have you seen that? Let me know in the comments. Have you seen that where one like person has a dumb take, and then all these other people are saying it. And because that's what I noticed last night. And I'm like, wait, this guy who hasn't crossed 20 fantasy points in 2 seasons is the chalk in tournaments? Now, of course, as it turned out last week, a lot of the QBs failed, right? A lot of them failed. So it didn't matter. But we're on record last week in saying, why would you play a guy who hasn't crossed? He's averaging 16. He's 16.7 DraftKings points per game. And that's with the team doing well. Going up against an Arizona team, for example, that couldn't stop the run. Like, there was no reason to think that the outcome for this game would be all that different from any other game. So I thought that was pretty funny. Now, that being said, at 65, again, I'm going to pay attention to ownership. If the Rams do have one of the better team totals, and it's fine. And now they're down a running back, so it's more likely they throw for touchdowns. But I don't know, 6,500 for Matthew Stafford. It's tough because a lot of these other kind of mediocre QBs are all in this range. You'll see. But I'm guessing I won't be on Stafford again here, just because the secondary problem with Stafford last week was stacking him with Kupp was very, very expensive. I played a lot of Kupp, but the combination wasn't effective. And that really was the issue. All right. Goff on the other side of that Baltimore game. I just as soon play Lamar Jackson in this spot. But one thing about Goff and Detroit is, I think with Montgomery injured, potentially, they don't have that running back that's going to steal the touchdowns, which is likely to lead to elevated throwing for touchdowns for Goff. If you needed a reason to be excited about Goff, that's what it is. Geno Smith simply hasn't done it this year. This is actually a great situation, though. It's hard. One of the tough things in this league, it's tough to play Geno Smith. And I think it's more tough to want to stack him. And I'm going to show you why. Not one of the pass catchers on his team has even come close to delivering value against their inflated salaries. So if you look at the 14.1 fantasy points per game for DK Metcalf, his best game of the season so far, 20 points on a 7K, 7, 14, 20, 28. So he's only delivered even quote unquote cash game value once out of 5 games. And he's not delivered anywhere near a tournament value even once. So if you've been playing DK Metcalf, you've effectively been losing every week. Okay, who else do they have? Well, Lockett priced up at 6K. Lockett's been doing a little bit better, but he really only has one game on the season right here where you kind of wanted to have him on your team, and he did good. You know, at this 6K level, he's averaging 12. Again, he's averaging 2X, not 2.5, not 3. We want them averaging 2.5X salary. And so at 2X, it's a problem. Let's get back to QB. There's so much more I got to shit on here, but some good stuff too. Jordan Love. I'm not sure if Jordan Love is good or not, but you know, he's played well for most of the games, and now he gets the ultimate matchup at Denver. Now, if this was at home, I think Jordan Love would be one of my favorite quarterbacks on this entire slate. If it's at home, it's Denver, he's cheap, and all these other QBs are expensive. I can totally see a scenario where all of these guys, now it might not work out that way, but the expensive crew, Mahomes, Allen, Lamar, that's the only 3 that, and Herbert, right? These 4. Could we not see a scenario where none of them score more than 25? I mean, if you look at Mahomes, he hasn't outscored 25 pretty much all year. So that's 5 games. Herbert isn't really regularly getting 25 plus. Looks like he got a 31 week, and that was it. So it's not like these guys are flying through 30 plus point performances. None of them. Jackson rarely does it. So maybe we could save 2K in salary for someone like Jordan Love. I really like Christian Watson. So I'm going to start this lineup off with Jordan Love at QB. I think I love the matchup. And there's just a very ugly QB position. But I also think it's just really obvious to pick Mahomes, Lamar, or Herbert, who they're all fine, but they're all very expensive, but they're all fine. I'm not against them. I'm just saying I want to build this lineup around Love. Continuing down, though, just to go through the rest of these QBs, I think Sam Howell is playable at 5,500. Fine. Don't love it, but It's fine. He's getting some rushing yards each week, and not a ton, but he gets a little bit. And he's got a 29, a 19, a 21. So he's got scores that are close to 4x a lot of these weeks. And I think the Giants defense is not good. So I'm fine with Howell. He'll be in my mix. Not playing Russ, not playing Baker. Dobbs, oh, man, it's hard to go back there. But once again, in tournaments, we're seeing what's winning in tournaments and playing shit stacks, vomit stacks, as Blenderhead would call them, vomit stacks. You got to play some of these in Millie Makers. And Dobbs continues to run for 47, 48, 55, and 41 yards. Anytime a quarterback is running for about 50 yards a game, that's a 5-point bonus before you get any other scoring going. It takes so little. He runs one in. Now you're starting at a 12, and all you need is almost nothing in the passing game. They're taking on a Seattle team that you can throw on them. So I think you got to go back to Dobbs here, as it's going to feel bad. Let's see. Jimmy G, more tests, MRI, back injury. We'll see what happens. If Jimmy G comes back, it changes the face of this slate. Minshew, no. Des Ridder, 2 weeks in a row, Millie Maker winner. At some point, we're going to have to start playing him. I played him a little bit last week. I just didn't get the right mix. So I will play him. Pickett, no. Actually, could Pickett be used? No Pickett. No. And that's about it. I don't want any of these backup QBs or any of that in my lineup. So starting our lineup here with Jordan Love. Sorry, I took a little extra time at the QB position this week because it's crazy. Everybody's out. It's a really gross week. There's no games that really explode off the page. So we're going to have to spend a lot of time trying to figure out who our guys are this week. I want to talk about running back, and I'm going to bring up my lock button super salary saver core play of the week, Zack Evans. So I'm going to talk about this kid. So Zack Evans is going to be starting probably for the Rams in place of the injured. I can't even remember his name, but in place of the Kyren Williams, in place of the injured Kyren Williams. Sean McVay has already said this guy's our starter. So I'm going to give you a little scouting report. I have Zack Evans on all of my dynasty teams, every single one, because you were able to get him late. So Zack Evans was touted as a prospect above the level of Bijan Robinson coming out of high school, a 5-star recruit, right? Ends up with some quote unquote attitude problems on his first team. Plays well, but like attitude problem, transfers away. And in his last year, I believe it was Mississippi State, absolutely tore it up. But he was tagged with attitude problems. Now, I'm not going to get into this kid's personal life. I don't even care about it. All I know is there were no attitude issues at Mississippi State. He falls to the 6th round. He's drafted there. But this was a guy that had been highly regarded as a prospect. And again, his reason for the drop was very much kind of like, I don't know what you want to call it, right? But it wasn't his play. So now Sean McVay is saying this guy's our starter. They've got the dusty ass Hoyce Freeman coming up from the practice squad. For 4K on DraftKings, Stone Min in a week where we absolutely need the salary relief. There aren't many good options on the slate. I'm locking in Zack Evans. He should get enough touches and even some targets to the point where we should be able to make up for the 4K salary. If he doesn't score a touchdown, if he doesn't catch a pass, it is what it is. But I like this spot for Zack Evans, so I'm putting him in my lineups. He will be, as of early in the week, more news and information will come out. And I make these videos on Tuesday. So who knows as the week progresses. But this kid opens up everything in your lineup at 4K. So we're going to plug him in. And now let's talk through the overall running back position. And of course, Austin Eckler, by far and away the best play on the slate. Did not do that much in his first game in terms of fantasy production, but he got the 14 carries, got the targets. He had his standard workload. This is the type of workload that often leads to those 30-point scores. Now at 8.6K, that's a lot to pay for someone like Eckler, who usually is kind of capped at about a 30-point performance, 8, 16, 24, 32. So 35, you need to get around 35 fantasy points to bring you back. But he's part of this game that I want to target. So I like Eckler. He's definitely high on my list of people I want to use. Saquon Barkley, much less likely than Eckler to cover his 8,100 salary. I don't know who's the QB for the Giants either at this point. So not super excited about that. Josh Jacobs, normally we'd like him here, and I do. But let's keep in mind that the Raiders, who the hell knows who their QB is going to be for this is going to be an ugly game. I do think it's a good spot for Jacobs. If you're the Raiders, you probably just want to lean on Jacobs here. So I do like him even with no QB, but the game total is so low. I don't think a lot of scoring is going to happen. So buyer beware. That's all. But, I think he's fine. Bijan at this point, to me, with as much work as Tyler Algier is getting, I don't need to play Bijan. The ceiling's just not there. He's effectively operating kind of like more like the I don't know how to put it. Like he's operating like what I thought Jahmyr Gibbs was going to be on the Lions, where he's getting a lot of passing work and some carries and everything. And I like what he's doing, but the volume is just not justifying the salary. I think Bijan should really be salaried, in that 6.2 to 6.4K zone with a lot of these other sort of okay running backs, not in the elite tier as of right now, but he is where he is. Kenny Walker, 7K, good spot, great matchup. Can't ask for more, but the price is a little bit high. And again, Kenny Walker is not generally that running back that gets you enough to. Let's see, he hit 30 once, and every other time he's in the teens. 7, 14, 21, 28. So he got there. He's about 28. I think he could do it. I like Kenny Walker here, and I think he's super likely to get you, upper teens, even in a bad game. And he never gets hurt, which is nice. Aaron Jones coming back for this Denver game. Yeah, that's okay. Again, Aaron Jones always a little bit dangerous of a play, but he should be back and at full health. So that's fine by me. Taylor, no. Cook, no. Cook just doesn't score touchdowns, and that's a problem. Normally, I'd like Jahmyr Gibbs, with Monty out, but I don't trust him even with Monty out, to be honest with you. I'm not going to load up on them. I'm not falling for that. No, thank you. Zach Moss, no. Isaiah Pacheco, take a look at how much work this kid's getting. 16 carries, 6 targets. Didn't do a whole lot against Denver, considering that matchup, but it's the workload that is exciting me. 23 touches, 17 touches, 17 touches. So he has been progressively getting more and more of the work for his team. I like Pacheco right now, what he's doing. So I could plug him right in there. There's more running backs, though, I want to still go through. Where were we? Pacheco, right? Brian Robinson Jr. is very much in play as well. Brian Robinson Jr., last week he didn't get a lot of work. It's kind of a weird thing, but he's scoring touchdowns most weeks, and he's been decent. Got the touchdown last week. I think this is a great matchup for him. So I'm interested, but not excited. Stevenson also scores last week, but he's just in a split. Williams not there yet. Also 10 carries seems like exactly what he's going to get like every single week. 10, 11, 12, 13, 2. He just gets that 10, 11, 12 carry range, no targets. I would say Jamal Williams is just not fully healed from his injury, and we might not see a full blast version of him all season long. Ford against the Colts, Ford continue. I know people are excited about Kareem Hunt doing a little bit of work, but Ford continues to be the prime starter. He holds interest for me for sure. Yeah, Kareem Hunt did the scoring last week, but it really was Ford. I think a lot of what happened last week was also they couldn't throw, so they just had to run a lot of volume to their running back. So we'll see where that goes. I think there'll be some interesting Craig Reynolds this week in the sort of Montgomery role. That's fine. I don't think I'm super excited, but at that price, but maybe. Foreman kind of failed for us. I pushed Foreman a lot last week as what I thought would be a good play. for multiple reasons he failed, but it wasn't for lack of volume. And so I stand by the call. He got 15 carries. He got a target, and then his quarterback went down, and the game just fell apart. So there's no way of knowing what could have been with Foreman with Fields getting hurt last week. But since Fields remains hurt, I just have no confidence in that team just being able to score points. Super low total. All right. Let's talk defense. I want to go in the order that we like to go in. Now, obviously, there are a ton of viable defenses because all of these backup quarterbacks that are playing this week. So, but also last week we kind of learned that paying all the way up for a defense is sketchy, or at least I learned that unfortunate lesson paying for San Francisco in a few spots. And of course, they only put up like a 7. So, while the score wasn't a killer score, it was just not good enough. So, some of our other defenses, the less expensive ones last week, really worked out. So, let's see if we can pick out one of those, but we'll go through the whole group here as well. So, I'm going to start from the bottom. Patriots at home, no. Not really interested there. Chargers at KC, no. Arizona at Seattle, not really interested there. Chiefs, no. Ravens, I'm not going to have much interest there. Denver. So, yeah, okay. Denver. I mean, I got Jordan Love in this lineup. I'm certainly not taking Denver, but, young QB can make mistakes, so I think that's okay. Falcons at Tampa, no. Bears at Las Vegas. You know what? Are the Bears a viable defense going up against Brian Hoyer? I'm going to say yes to that. I don't love it, but I think it's acceptable. Giants at home against Washington and Sam Howell. Yeah, I think that's an acceptable play. Seattle at home against Arizona. Yeah, I think that's acceptable. So there's some pay down options at defense that I think not great. I don't love it, but are acceptable. Browns at the Colts. I think this is probably one of the better plays. Obviously the Colts now have Gardner Minshew at the helm, and I just don't think that's a good spot. He's not that good. And Cleveland defense is actual real life good. So I like that one. Of course, if we get up to the top here, we could play the Raiders at Chicago with Badgett at the helm. That's going to be a disaster for them. And potentially, the Rams at home against Pickett. But for the purpose of this, let's see here. Who can we attack? I think I'm going to go here with Chicago, as weird as this is. I'm going to go with Chicago at home, going up against whoever the backup quarterback is for the Raiders. I know it's crazy. Chicago's defense sucks, and Chicago's offense sucks, but I just think that's going to be an ugly game on both sides. So I'm just looking for a cheap one that we could plug in. There's some other ones, and we'll get more down and dirty with defenses later in the week. And of course, in our talk with Burns, who is like a master of picking the best defense each week on the Millie Maker, How to Beat the Millie Maker show that we do here on Thursday. So come back for that one. All right. Continuing on, let's go through the tight end. Actually, let's just roll over to wide receiver and kind of run through this position group, and we'll pick out some plays that we like, but more importantly, just kind of go through the position group as a whole and talk to these guys. So Cooper Kupp, sure. Yeah, great last week, great every week. 9,500 price is very tough to swallow, but he got us another 30 last week, and Cooper Kupp continues to prove that when he's healthy and when Matt Stafford is healthy, he is effectively, a top 2 or 3 wide receiver in the league every single week. Stephon Diggs is fine there if you're playing Josh Allen. I think Keenan Allen is great here. The Chargers are going to need to throw. He's coming off another good game. I think Keenan Allen, so what I was talking about on the Showdown breakdown this past week about Keenan Allen, I'll just bring it up again here, is that Keenan Allen does less good when Austin Eckler is there. He's always going to be a little less good. I don't think we're going to see those 35 type 40 point perform. Let's see what he did a couple weeks. Yeah, he got the 48, he got the 35. So he had the 2 smash weeks. I don't think we're going to see anything like this again this year. I think what we should be looking for are more games now that Eckler's back in the 20s. So just be aware of it. I think he's overpriced for the role, but a lot of us are going to play Keenan Allen this week because it's that game and it's the only game that pops and everything. So he should be very, very chalky. And, I'm really got to think about whether I want to eat that chalk or find some alternative. Devontae Adams with no Garoppolo is no bueno. Amon-Ra St. Brown, yes, but 8K is a little expensive. Puka, meh. With cutback, Puka is just a little too pricey for the role. 7 targets last week. So, this was just not that good. So he's priced a little too high with cutback. Evans and Godwin, both just meh. DK Metcalf, I guess. If this is a build around Seattle, I think I'm going to save DK Metcalf this week for if I have Geno lineups. But I do like the matchup against Arizona, but that's about it. Pittman, no, tough matchup. DJ Moore, no, bad quarterback. Myers, no, bad quarterback. Cooper's interesting only if Deshaun Watson comes back, but we'll see about that. Davis, no. Judy, no. Zay Flowers. So there's a couple buttons I want to click, and they're all right here. So 3 of my favorites this week. One of them is Zay Flowers. I like this game. It stands out a little bit as one of the better ones. It's not a great matchup, but I think that Baltimore will need to be throwing quite a bit in this matchup. So I'm good with Flowers. Next, I've got Christian Watson, who I'm plugging in here to go with Love. Christian Watson's got that big upside. He last week, these misses, these targets that weren't caught, they were deep bombs, right? If he catches any of those, he easily and that's why he almost got there on just 3 receptions last game out, no touchdown. So if we can get a touchdown, or if we could just land another one of these passes against this really horrible defense, I think we're going to be in great shape. So give me some Christian Watson this week to go along with Jordan Love in this lineup. But just in general, another player I've been very excited about is George Pickens. Pittsburgh, he's kind of like a Christian Watson. They're throwing deep balls to him, and he has extreme talent. I think Pittsburgh's going to be throwing in this game. I don't love that it's on the road, but absolutely nothing is perfect this week. So I don't mind a little George Pickens in my lineups as well. Any of these 3 guys are fine. Continuing on, Terry McLaurin, I like that matchup against the Commanders. I haven't played Terry McLaurin much, as you guys know, but he's finally come down off of that 6,500. Terry McLaurin is one of those players, like I said, there are certain players that DraftKings perennially overprices. The Seattle wide receivers are the perfect example. But Terry McLaurin is one of those guys. He's been priced in the 6Ks for years, and he never justified it. So to see him coming down to 5.4K, I just think it's much more where he belongs. Marquise Brown, another 10 targets, I believe. There we go, 11 targets last week. This guy, double-digit targets are super consistent, wish the QB was better, but I do not mind a little bit of Marquise Brown as well. And any of these are interchangeable. So, for example, if I have this extra salary left over, one way I might want to go is try to look to squeeze Eckler in a lineup. So I'm going to actually do that. But I want to continue looking through these wide receivers because I have some super punts for you guys as well that look really good. But Drake London has been doing it great the last few weeks as well. So I am fine with him. So we've got Flowers, Watson, Pickens, London, Marquise Brown. There's a whole bunch of wide receivers in this 5K zone that I think are fantastic. And I think that's where I'm going to live in week 7. It just feels right to play a bunch of these guys in lineups. There's also, like I said, some super cheap options that I'm going to mention that should be of interest. Cortland Sutton would be an interesting bring back option in this game, in this Denver Green Bay game if we're building around that. Romeo Doubs is fine, but not really. They're only 4 targets last week. So the return of Christian Watson kind of hurt Doubs a little bit. We'll see if he picks his role back up. Palmer getting a lot of targets in the right game, in the right matchup here. So I think that's fine. 7 targets, 8 targets. Hasn't done it yet, but 4,800 is not that big of a barrier to get past. And I think he'll get better each week. Rashee Rice is probably going to be over-owned for his 4-target projection. Let's see if there's anybody else. Yeah, Kendrick Bourne had a good week. The Dom Station, the DFS Army Optimizer was pushing Kendrick Bourne in all my lineups. And I was like, why is this guy in all my lineups? But it worked out really well last week, and he ended up with a 20, which was a solid, 4.5x his salary, which is all you can ask for. Curtis Samuel having good weeks. Had another big week last week. Only 4 receptions. Everybody pat themselves on the back, but you got a little lucky with Curtis Samuel last week. Let's not push our luck. There is a player I'm getting to here. Wan'Dale Robinson, though, down here again, fine by me. Fine play, acceptable. And finally, wait, let me pull him up here. But Jaylen Hyatt, here we go. Jaylen Hyatt, for Stone Min, had a pretty high snap count last week, the highest of any wide receiver or player, pass catcher on the Giants. He only got four targets, 3 receptions. If Daniel Jones comes back, I'm going to have some interest in Jaylen Hyatt here. It seems like he might be making his way up to being a starter. So interesting 3K player that I wanted to mention. But you already saw here that you could pretty much just live in the 5K zone for these wide receivers. And I think that's our best group. I think we're going to have to build a lot of lineups based on that. Now, with 59.50 left for this lineup, we have a choice. We can either pay down for another cheap, just random pick a cheap tight end. The tight end position is very sketchy again this week. The pay up options are not the best outside of Kelsey. I don't hate Mark Andrews, though. I do kind of like that. So I'm probably going to plug in Mark Andrews right there, and we'll have 6,200 left. But let's just talk through the tight end position real quick. So Travis Kelsey up top, great. Hasn't really been producing, had to have it scores against his salary. He's more in that 20, 22 points, 8, 16, 24, 32. We really need 30s. I don't really think Kelsey's going to get to the 30 plus most weeks. So, but he'll usually get you around 2022, which is fine. Laporta, hit or miss player. Waller, again, not somebody I'm normally going to be rostering. Giants just don't score enough, and he has yet to produce a score decent. Komet, no quarterback. Hunter Henry sucks. Kyle Pitts, 4K. Price came up a little bit. Okay, not the worst thing in the world, but not the best. Freiermuth should be back this week at 3,900. I don't hate that spot for Freiermuth if he can stay healthy. Gerald Everett, just hoping for some floor there. Jonah Smith is splitting touches with Kyle Pitts. Just weird. Logan Thomas coming off the bad week. So there's not a lot of great spots here to target. Everything looks kind of bad. Mayer, not with the backup quarterback in play. I don't like it. So I'm looking to find a pay down option, but it is not easy here. Dawson Knox, don't really trust that. Don Parham, I am kind of interested in him. But for the most part, I think Mark Andrews is the best play on the slate, and he is who I'm going to be plugging into my tight end position. Let's jump over to the flex for the last spot. We're going to fill out this lineup. Let's see if there's anybody in the. We'll just talk shit about these players. So, yeah, I found my guy. There he is. So just to go through it, I'm not playing Myers with no Garoppolo. I'm definitely not playing Moss. If Deshaun Watson was back, I would be interested in Amari Cooper in this game. But I don't know that he's back, that he's going to play. But I'd be interested. But I think the safest pick here is just slide Pacheco in here from the game of the week. We got 100 left. Let's go and see if we can upgrade a defense. Does not look like we can. I'm going to leave this crappy defense in here. And there you have it, guys. This is your DraftKings NFL Week 7 first look. It's a first look lineup. Things will change, but a couple of the highlights. Zack Evans, eat that cheap chalk. Why not? He's going to start. We need a 4K player in our lineup. I'm eating it. Second takeaway, 50, like the sub 6, between 6,000 and like 5K on DraftKings seems to be the sweet spot for like value wide receivers. I don't mind paying all the way up for Eckler here, but I also don't mind paying all the way up for Cooper Kupp if I don't need Eckler in that lineup. Mark Andrews, top tight end for me on the slate. And I think vomit stacks at quarterback are going to be the way. So let me know what your favorite vomit stack is this week. Again, credit to Blenderhead for that term, but cheap stacks look gross on paper, but that's what's been winning. You're going back to Dez, Ritter, and those double stacks, what won the Millie Maker last week. Are you doing something different? Let us know. Hit the like button, subscribe. We'll be back all week with all kinds of DFS content. Good luck, and I will see you on top of the leaderboards.